Hi, this is Allison Hicks, and this is my presentation for my professional growth development for Practicum 2. Since we were only given a 4-week time period for this project, we were only focusing on Domain 3 of the Danielson framework. For my Domain 3, I chose Component E, which is demonstrating flexibility and responsiveness, and my small element was responding to all students' needs. So for my goal, I said my goal for the next 4 weeks in Practicum is to be able to respond to all my students' needs, especially those who have a disability. In regard to this goal, I plan to create a safe and learning-oriented environment that all students feel comfortable in. This was very important for my classroom because I had 6 students who were autistic and on IEPs and a part of Alta Care, so it was very, very important that I respond to their needs as well as the rest of my students' needs. I was working with 28 third graders, which is a challenge in itself, but when you add on students with disabilities, it gets even more complicated. So therefore, I really wanted to make sure that all my students felt comfortable and safe in their learning environment, and that I, as a teacher, could respond to all their needs. So in order to achieve my goal, there were certain action steps that I had to take. So in order to achieve my goal, I plan on doing daily reflections at the end of each day that focus on my own actions and how I handled different situations. I also plan on doing research this weekend, when my goal was written, and talking to my CT about the best ways to balance responsiveness between students with and without disabilities. Finally, I plan on reflecting with my field supervisor and asking her opinion on strategies that I have tried as well as new ideas that I have yet to try. These were the action steps that I did take in order to achieve this goal because I wanted to reflect on my own learning as I prepare for student teaching this fall and find out what works and what doesn't work. For student teaching, I am in a kindergarten classroom, so it's going to be very different than my third grade experience. However, I thought that I could perhaps use the same strategies that I used in third grade as well as in kindergarten and see if they worked the same. I also want to talk to my CT and my field supervisor about these actions and strategies because they have the experience that I don't yet. They know how to work with students with disabilities, especially my CT, as she has spent the entire year with all these students. These were valuable resources that I really wanted to value and take my time with because they knew what I didn't, and therefore they could help me achieve my goal in the best way possible. I also want to reflect through journaling because I feel as though, for me personally, journaling is the best way that I can reflect on what I've done and what works and what doesn't. And it's a great resource to have for student teaching when I'll be in the classroom all day, every day for 16 weeks in the fall. This way I can see and read what works and what doesn't and how I can constantly improve on this. In regards to my evidence, I said, I will know my goal has been met through students' actions in the classroom as well as through meetings with my CT and field supervisor. If the atmosphere in the classroom is well managed and all students are behaving, I know my goal has been met. I will also know my goal has been met if my students with disabilities feel comfortable enough to come up to me and ask for help or want to talk about something. I will finally know my goal has been met if students respond to new activities with questions as well as when they need help. This was so important that I knew that my goal was met through this because with my autistic students, some of them don't talk. They rather would write questions down, which is just fine. But I want to get to that point where they could come up to me with either a written question or a verbal question or just approach me if they needed help. They do this with my CT, so I wanted to make sure that if I could do this as well, that they would feel comfortable and I knew that my goal to responding to all student needs would be met. So, was it met? Yes, my goal was met, which was fantastic. I had 3 hard cases of evidence to support my theory, or I guess not my theory, but rather my belief that my goal was met. So, the first experience that I had that really solidified my goal was going on a field trip with my students. We went to a couple different field trips my second week in the classroom, and we went to the Gallatin Pioneer Museum, and one of our very autistic students had a meltdown, and it resulted in me having to take the student out. And there's a certain YouTube video they really like to watch, so we sat underneath a tree downtown and watched this video for about 15 minutes, and it calmed them down. And they actually thanked me, and they were able to talk about why they had a disruption and why they felt they had to burst out this way. And it was really, really positive, and it showed me that this student felt comfortable enough to talk about it and to even apologize for what happened. So this showed me that I was able to handle the situation as well as balance both my students' needs with and without disabilities. When this meltdown had occurred, I was actually helping a student fill out one of their worksheets that they were given at the museum, and I had to ask the student that I was working with, if you need any help, just keep your questions in the back of in your mind, and I'll come back and help you. While I dealt with this student who had a conniption. So it was really, really great to see that the students who didn't have disabilities are very respectful of their peers who do. The second interaction I had was an apology letter I received this past week from a student. This student consistently blurts out, is very disrespectful. They are on an IEP, so I do know that they have issues that affect their learning. But it was really cool to see at the end of the day, they actually came up to me and said, I'm so sorry, Miss Hicks. Here's a letter I wrote to you saying why I was disrespectful and I just want to apologize. This never happens with this student, and it showed me that I was being respected and that the student actually did feel bad for the way they're behaving when I was teaching, which also showed me that this responsiveness was being, in fact, taken into account because normally the student does not interact with professionals this way and is usually sent down to the principals and has never apologized. So that was very, very cool to see an apology letter to come from them and have them in writing state why they were being disrespectful. My final evidence that supports my theory that I met my goal was an interaction with a parent after the field trip. There was one of the parents who saw me sitting with the student who had a meltdown outside, and she kind of talked to me about it and asked what was going on, why I was doing what I was doing, things like that. And the next day she came to the classroom and pulled me aside and said that her child, which was different from the one having a meltdown, was very, very excited to go to school now and loved going to school. And she said that she truly believes it's because of my interactions with their child in the classroom. And she was very grateful and said, if it wasn't for me, she doesn't think her student would be doing as well as they are right now in the last couple weeks of school. And this showed me that my goal was met because I was able to respond to her child's needs and help them in school and listen and respect their thoughts. And so with these three components in mind, I absolutely believe my goal was met. But however, I need to continue growing. I'm not done with this goal at all. I've met what I wanted to meet as far as my goal this past 4 weeks, but I want to keep growing. I want to keep being able to respond to all students' needs. And the only way I can do that is through experience. So I am student teaching this fall, and my plan is to talk to my CT and figure out what works for her. How should I do this? What are her expectations for the classroom? As well as talking to outside resources and furthering my knowledge to find out what else I want to grow on, what else I want to continue building. How can I respond to all students' needs, but also find that balance of being responsive, but also teaching and educating. This is a goal that I believe I will carry with me throughout my entire teaching career, and I can only continue to grow on it as I have experience. My timeline as far as solidifying this goal until graduation is to be, I feel like be at a point in November 2016 where I've met this goal as far as being a pre-service teacher. I have the knowledge, I have the background, and I feel ready to take these strategies into my own classroom. The only way I can do this is to have conferences with my CT and my field supervisor, but also to do journaling and reflections just like I have been doing now. I feel as though this way I will be ready and prepared to have my own classroom. I will have a vast knowledge of experience and resources that I can call on and go to if I feel stuck or need help with something. But also I'll be ready to take on any student's needs and be able to respond to them in a professional and well managed environment. So that was my professional growth development. I'm very, very excited to continue this goal in student teaching this fall, and thank you so much for watching.